Alright, let's be honest for a second. Most realistic games aren't actually realistic. They look good, sure, but the moment you start playing, something just feels off. Then there are those rare games, the ones where you forget you're even holding a controller, where the world breathes, people react naturally, and every little detail pulls you deeper in. And yeah, once you play something like that, it kinda ruins normal games for you. So in this video, we're diving into 15 ultra-realistic single-player games that don't just look real, they feel real. So yeah, this list is all about immersion, not just graphics, but the way these games handle movement, physics, NPC behavior, weather, sound design. All the stuff that tricks your brain into thinking this world could actually exist. Some of these might surprise you, some you probably already love, but trust me, every single one here earns its spot. Starting off strong with Red Dead Redemption 2, and honestly, this game still feels unfair compared to everything else out there. The level of detail is just insane. You're not just playing as Arthur Morgan, you're living his life. Like, even something as simple as riding your horse feels real. The way it reacts to terrain, the way it gets tired, even the bonding system makes you care about it more than you expected. And the world, man, the world is alive. NPCs remember you, react to how you dress, what you've done, even how you talk to them. You walk into a town covered in mud and people actually comment on it. That kind of detail just hits different. And then there's the slower pacing, which some people complain about, but honestly that's what makes it feel real. You're forced to take things in, to exist in that world instead of rushing through it. Hunting, fishing, random encounters on the road. It all feels natural, like you're part of something bigger. It's not perfect, yeah, sometimes it can feel a bit too slow, but when it clicks, nothing else really comes close. Next up is Kingdom Come, Deliverance, and this one doesn't just aim for realism, it fully commits to it, even when it makes things harder for you. You're not some chosen hero here, you start off as Henry, just a regular blacksmith's son who can barely swing a sword properly, and you feel that weakness immediately. The combat alone is enough to humble you. It's slow, directional, and honestly kinda clunky at first, but that's the point. You have to actually learn it, practice it, and earn every bit of progress. And outside of combat, the game goes even deeper. You need to eat, sleep, keep your clothes clean, and even the way you present yourself affects how people treat you. Walk into a town covered in blood and dirt, and don't expect a warm welcome. What really stands out though is how grounded everything feels. There's no fantasy magic saving you, no shortcuts, just pure medieval life with all its struggles. Traveling takes time, fights are risky, and even simple tasks feel meaningful because nothing is handed to you. It can be frustrating, yeah, especially if you're used to faster-paced RPGs, but once you settle into its rhythm, it creates this crazy sense of immersion where you actually feel like you're surviving in that world, not just playing through it. And trust me, once you get used to it, going back to easier games feels almost weird. Then you've got The Last of Us Part 2, and this one hits a completely different kind of realism, not just in how it looks, but in how it feels emotionally and physically. The first thing you notice is how grounded every movement is. Ellie doesn't just glide around like most game characters, she stumbles, squeezes through tight spaces, reacts to every hit like it actually hurts. Combat is intense in a way that's honestly uncomfortable sometimes. Enemies call out each other's names, react when someone goes down, and it makes every fight feel personal instead of just another encounter. And the animations. They're on another level. Every little action, from reloading to crawling under a truck, is detailed in a way that makes the world feel real without you even thinking about it. But what really sticks with you is the atmosphere, the silence between fights, the tension while sneaking around, the way the world feels broken but still believable. It's not trying to be fun all the time, and that's exactly why it works. There are moments where you'll just sit there after a scene and kind of process what just happened. It's heavy, it's raw, and yeah, it can be divisive, but when it comes to realism in storytelling and gameplay combined, this game sets a standard that's really hard to match. And trust me, it only gets crazier from here. After that, stepping into Cyberpunk 2077 feels like jumping straight into the future, but in a way that still somehow feels believable. Night City isn't just a map, it's a living, breathing place where every street has its own vibe, its own noise, its own chaos. You've got crowds moving around, conversations happening in the background, ads blasting in your face. It feels overwhelming in the best way. And once you start playing as V, you realize how personal everything is. The first-person perspective pulls you right in, whether you're talking to someone up close or just driving through the city at night with the radio on. The gunplay feels punchy, the hacking adds this cool layer of control, and even small choices in dialogue can shift how things play out. Now yeah, it had a rough launch, no denying that, but the game you play today is a completely different experience. The visuals, especially with lighting and reflections, are on another level, and when everything clicks, it's honestly one of the most immersive worlds out there. There are still moments where things can feel a bit off, like NPC routines not being as deep as you'd expect, but when you're cruising through Night City with neon lights reflecting everywhere, it's easy to forget all that. And we're not done yet, because the next few games take realism in a whole different direction. Then there's Death Stranding, and this one is honestly a weird kind of realistic, but in a way that just sticks with you. At first, it might seem like you're just walking from point A to point B, carrying packages, and yeah, that's technically true. But the way the game builds around that simple idea is what makes it feel so real. You actually have to think about balance, weight distribution, the terrain under your feet. One wrong step on a rocky slope and suddenly you're stumbling, trying to keep everything from falling over, and it feels tense in a way you don't expect from just walking. The environment plays a huge role too. Rain isn't just visual, it affects your cargo, your movement, even the world itself. And then there's this quiet loneliness while you're traveling, broken only by music kicking in at the perfect moment, and it hits differently. You start planning routes, placing ladders, leaving tools for other players. And without even realizing it, you feel connected in a world that's supposed to feel empty. It's slow, yeah, and definitely not for everyone. But if you give it time, it creates this oddly satisfying loop where every delivery feels earned. And just when you think you've seen everything realism can do, the next few games take things even further. Right after that, Mafia. Definitive Edition brings things back to a more grounded, cinematic kind of realism, and it honestly feels like you're playing through a classic crime movie. Set in the 1930s, everything from the cars to the streets to the way people talk just feels authentic. Driving alone is a whole experience. Those old-school vehicles don't handle like modern ones at all. They're slower, heavier, and you actually have to respect the speed limits unless you want the police on you. And yeah, that might sound small, but it adds so much to the immersion. You're not just speeding through missions, you're existing in that time period. The story follows Tommy Angelo, and the way it unfolds feels natural, like you're slowly getting pulled deeper into the Mafia world instead of being thrown into chaos right away. Gunfights are grounded too, not overly flashy, just raw and tense. And visually, the remake does a great job bringing that era to life with detailed environments and strong atmosphere, especially during nighttime or rainy scenes. It's not as open-ended as some other games on this list, but that focused, story-driven approach actually helps it feel more real, like everything has purpose. And honestly, if you're into immersive storytelling, this one hits hard in a very subtle way. But yeah, don't relax yet because the next games keep raising the bar. Then you've got Noire, and this one goes all in on a different kind of realism that you don't really see in most games. Instead of focusing on combat or big action moments, it puts you in the shoes of a detective, and suddenly it's all about observation, reading people, and paying attention to the smallest details. What really stands out is the facial animation. Even today, it still feels impressive how you can actually study someone's expression while they're talking and try to figure out if they're lying or hiding something. And yeah, it's not always easy. Sometimes you'll feel confident about a choice and still get it wrong, which honestly makes it feel more real. Investigating crime scenes is another highlight. You're walking around, looking for clues, picking up objects, listening for subtle audio cues, and it creates this slow, methodical pace that pulls you in if you let it. The 1940s Los Angeles setting also adds a lot to the immersion, with vintage cars, old-school streets, and that classic noir atmosphere. It's not perfect, the driving can feel a bit stiff and the action isn't the main focus, but that's kind of the point. This game isn't trying to be flashy, it's trying to make you think and observe, and when it works, it feels like you're actually solving cases instead of just following markers. And trust me, the realism doesn't stop here because what's coming next might surprise you even more.
I tell you I'm jinxed. I always get landed with this crap.
Then there's The Witcher 3. Wild Hunt, and even though it leans into fantasy, the world itself feels shockingly real once you spend time in it. Like yeah, you've got monsters, magic, all that stuff, but the way people live, the way villages feel, the way war has affected everything around you, it all feels grounded. You ride into a small town and it's not just there for decoration. People are struggling, arguing, surviving, and you can actually feel that atmosphere. Playing as Geralt has this weight to it too. Combat isn't just mindless swinging, you're preparing, using the right oils, potions, reading your enemy before going in, and the side quests. Honestly, some of them feel more real than entire main stories in other games. They're messy, emotional, and rarely have a perfect outcome, which makes your choices feel meaningful instead of just good or bad. Even simple things like the day and night cycle, weather changes, or riding through a forest while the wind is blowing add to that immersion without you even noticing. Sure, the movement can feel a bit floaty at times, and it's not realistic in a literal sense, but emotionally and environmentally, it pulls you in hard. And yeah, just when you think fantasy can't feel this grounded, the next games push realism in ways you probably didn't expect. After that, Metro Exodus takes realism into a harsh, survival-focused direction that you can feel almost immediately. This isn't the kind of game where you just run in guns blazing and expect everything to work out. Ammo feels limited, your weapons degrade over time, and even something as simple as checking your map is done in real time. No pause, no break from the world. You're physically pulling it out while everything around you keeps moving, and that alone adds this constant tension. The environments are a huge part of what makes it feel real too. Whether you're walking through a frozen wasteland or a dusty, sunburnt desert, the atmosphere hits you differently in each area. The lighting, the sound design, the way creatures move in the distance. It all builds this sense that the world is dangerous even when nothing is actively attacking you. And then there's the small details like wiping your mask when it gets dirty or watching your gear react to the environment that just pull you deeper in. It's not always smooth, yeah, sometimes the AI can feel a bit inconsistent, but when everything lines up, it creates this immersive survival experience where every decision matters. You're not just progressing through levels, you're trying to stay alive. And honestly, from here, the next few games start getting even closer to real life in ways that might catch you off guard. Then you've got Days Gone, and this one really nails that feeling of just trying to survive in a broken world where everything is against you. From the moment you start riding around as Deacon, you realize your bike isn't just for travel, it's basically your lifeline. You're constantly worrying about fuel, repairs, upgrades, and running out of gas in the middle of nowhere. Yeah, that's a real problem here. What makes it feel grounded is how unpredictable things can get. You might be heading somewhere simple, and suddenly you're dealing with a freaker horde, a random ambush, or wildlife attacking out of nowhere. And those hordes, man, they're on a different level, watching hundreds of infected moving together, reacting to sound, chasing you down. It creates this panic that feels way too real sometimes. The world itself feels alive in a rough, dangerous way. Weather changes, day and night cycles affect enemy behavior, and even the tone shifts depending on what's happening around you. It's not perfect, sure, the story pacing can drag a bit and some missions feel repetitive, but when you're out there on the road, managing resources, planning your next move, it pulls you in. It gives you that constant tension where you're never fully safe, and that's what makes it stick. And yeah, just when you think survival can't get more intense, the next games take realism to another level completely. Then there's Far Cry 5, and this one feels real in a way that sneaks up on you. At first, it looks like your typical open-world chaos, but the more time you spend in Hope County, the more grounded it starts to feel. The setting plays a huge role here. It's not some distant fantasy land, It's rural America, with farms, small towns, forests, and everything in between, and it all feels believable. You're driving down a quiet road, music playing, and for a moment, it feels peaceful, until everything suddenly goes wrong. What really adds to the immersion is how dynamic the world is. You're not just following missions. Things happen around you constantly. Civilians get into trouble, enemies patrol the roads, wildlife reacts to what you're doing, and sometimes chaos just breaks out naturally. Gunplay is smooth and responsive, but it's the little details like fishing, hunting, flying planes, or just exploring that make it feel like a real place instead of just a game map. The story, centered around a cult, also adds this uneasy tension that sticks with you, especially during those quiet moments. It's not the most realistic in terms of mechanics compared to others on this list, but in terms of atmosphere and world design, it pulls you in more than you'd expect. And yeah, we're getting close now, and the next few games are where things get seriously impressive. And then you've got Hitman 3, which takes realism in a completely different direction by focusing on systems and human behavior instead of just visuals. Playing as Agent 47 feels less like controlling a character and more like stepping into a living, breathing simulation. Every location is packed with NPCs following routines, having conversations, reacting to what's happening around them, and the crazy part is how consistent it all feels. You start noticing patterns, figuring out who goes where, who talks to who, and slowly building your plan. The realism here comes from freedom. You can approach a situation in so many ways, disguise yourself, blend into crowds, manipulate events, and it all works in a way that feels logical. If you mess up, people react, guards investigate, civilians panic, and suddenly your clean plan turns into chaos. Even small details like how suspicious you look depending on where you are or what you're wearing add to that immersion. It's not about fast action, it's about patience and observation. And when you finally pull off a perfect assassination without anyone noticing, it feels insanely satisfying. It might not be realistic in a real-world sense of story, but the way its systems interact makes it feel believable in its own unique way. And yeah, now we're heading into the final stretch, and the last few games might just be the most immersive of them all. Then there's Resident Evil 4 Remake, and this one proves that even a horror game can feel incredibly grounded when everything is designed with detail and intention. From the moment you step into that village, there's this constant tension that doesn't really let go. The way enemies move, react, and surround you feels way more natural compared to the original. They're not just running at you blindly, they coordinate, they adapt, and it forces you to stay alert the whole time. Combat feels heavier too. Every shot matters, reloading takes time, and when you're low on ammo, you actually feel that pressure building up. What really sells the realism, though, is the atmosphere, the lighting, the sound design, the small environmental details. It all works together to make the world feel believable, even with all the horror elements. You hear footsteps behind you, distant noises, doors creaking, and your brain starts filling in the gaps, which makes everything more intense. And Leon himself feels more human this time around. His reactions, his movement, even the way he handles situations feels more grounded compared to the older version. It's not realistic in a peaceful, everyday sense, but in terms of tension, survival, and how the world responds to you, it pulls you in completely. And yeah, we're almost at the end now, and the final entries are where realism hits on a whole different level. And then you've got Detroit, Become Human, and this one hits realism in a way that's more about people than the world itself. It's not about survival or combat, it's about choices, consequences, and how small decisions can completely change everything. You're following multiple characters, and each one feels real in their own way, with their own struggles, emotions, and motivations. What really stands out is how natural the dialogue and performances feel. Conversations don't feel like typical game dialogue. They feel like actual interactions, where tone, hesitation, and timing matter. And the craziest part is how the game reacts to you. One decision can branch into something completely different, and you don't always see the impact right away. Sometimes it comes back later in a way you didn't expect, The environments are detailed too, clean, futuristic spaces mixed with subtle signs of a world that's not as perfect as it looks. But it's the emotional realism that really sticks. You start questioning your choices, wondering if you did the right thing, and that kind of connection isn't easy to pull off. It's not for everyone, especially if you're looking for action, but if you get into it, it feels less like playing a game and more like shaping a story that could actually happen. And yeah, we're down to the last few now, and these final ones might just be the most immersive experiences on this whole list. And finally, there's A Plague Tale, Requiem, and this one wraps everything up with a kind of realism that hits you emotionally more than anything else. The world is dark, brutal, and honestly uncomfortable at times, but that's exactly what makes it feel real. Following Amisha and Hugo through this journey, you can feel the weight of everything they're going through. It's not just another adventure, it feels like survival in the truest sense. Resources are limited, situations get overwhelming, and you're constantly making decisions under pressure. The environments are incredibly detailed too, from quiet villages to chaotic, rat-infested areas that just feel straight up disturbing. And those rats, the way they move, swarm, and react to light creates this constant tension that never really goes away. What really stands out though is how emotional everything feels. The voice acting, the small character moments, the way the story unfolds. It sticks with you even after you stop playing. It's not trying to be fun all the time, and that's what makes it powerful. You feel the fear, the desperation, and even the small moments of hope in between. It's a heavy experience, but a memorable one, and honestly, it's a perfect way to end this list. And yeah, those were 15 ultra-realistic single-player games that don't just look real, they actually feel real when you play them. Some focus on pure survival, some on emotional storytelling, and some on building worlds so detailed you can just get lost in them for hours. Now I'm curious, which one hit you the hardest? Or is there a game you think deserved a spot here? Drop it in the comments, I'd love to see what you guys think. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and stick around, because there's a lot more coming.